Hey everybody, Math 6, video 5.7, and we are talking about converting measures today, and I thought we'd mix it up with some different backgrounds, because we can. So in order to talk about converting measures, we need to first talk about what kind of measures we're going to be converting. And we're going to be talking about the U.S. customary system and the metric system. Okay, so the U.S. customary system is a system of measurements that contains units for length, capacity, and weight. Okay, so an example of something for length would be inches. Okay, inches is part of the U.S. customary system. Capacity would be maybe cups. You could say cups or quarts. Those are different ways to measure capacity. Okay, so the ability for something to hold something else. And then lastly, weight, most commonly pounds and ounces. Okay, so that's the U.S. customary system. All right, now metric system is another system of measurement, mostly used overseas and in pretty much most other countries, actually, aside from the United States. And it uses powers of 10 to describe units for length, capacity, and mass. So for length, we might have centimeter. That'd be an example of length. We measure something in centimeters. Capacity, we could do liters, okay? So like a 2-liter bottle of soda is actually a metric way of measuring that. And then mass, we would say grams. And then, of course, there's the various forms of grams. So decagrams, hectograms, kilograms is probably the most common one besides regular gram. And then you also have metric, tons, okay? Or I think sometimes they spell it T-O-N-N-E-S. So again, the commonly, people say the British way of measuring things and the U.S. way of measuring things. They kind of all get to the same point, okay? Measuring length, capacity, and weight, or down here we say mass. But sometimes we need to convert between the two. We need to take inches and make it into centimeters, and so that's what we're going to do today. All right, so how do we do those conversions? Well, we use what are called conversion factors. And a conversion factor is just a rate that is helpful in converting from one type of measurement to another. Okay, so if we want to take inches and turn it into centimeters, or even inches to feet, so staying within U.S. customary, we would still use a conversion factor. And then also the numerator and denominator in a conversion factor, so a conversion factor is going to be a fraction, because we already said that it's a rate. It's going to have different units on top and bottom, but both are actually equal to each other. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's take the fact that we understand that 3 feet is equal to one yard. Okay, so that's staying within U.S. customary, and that's fine. The conversion factor we would use, though, in a problem is not 3 feet equals 1 yard. It would be either 3 feet over 1 yard or 1 yard over 3 feet. And you'll see why we use which one of these later on. It does matter. But what you see is that in both of these, the numerator and the denominator are actually equaling each other. We know that 3 feet is 1 yard. So this whole thing here is actually equal to the value of 1, like the number 1. Why? Well, because what's 4 over 4? 1. What's 12 over 12? 1. What's 3 feet over 1 yard? It's technically 1. All right, but we use this to take maybe feet and get rid of it and make it into yards, or vice versa. Okay, so another conversion factor would be that 1 meter is, and I'm going to use squiggly equals here, and that means approximately equal to 3.28 feet. Okay, so that is true. But expressed as a conversion factor, that would be either 1 meter over 3.28 feet, or you could flip it depending on the problem. If you needed to use this way, you would do 3.28 feet over 1 meter. And you can just use M for meter. You don't have to write it out. All right, so let's do a problem here. They're asking us to convert 36 quarts to gallons, okay? So what we need to know is a conversion factor that includes both quarts and gallons, okay? Now, some of these you're going to have to memorize and some you're not, and we'll talk more about that in class, okay? But for now, I'll give you the necessary one that includes quarts and gallons, okay? And that is that there are 4 quarts in 1 gallon. Okay, so that is true, but we need to turn that into a conversion factor or a rate, right, which takes the form of a fraction. So I can either use 4 quarts QT over 1 GAL, or I could use 1 gallon, period, spread my periods, over 4 quarts, okay? So which one are we going to use? Well, this is when we need to pay attention to what they give us to start with. Convert 36 quarts to gallons. So we're starting with the 36 quarts. So I'm going to write 36 quarts out real quick. 36, that's kind of light. Hold on. 36 quarts. And I'm going to put that over the number 1, okay? Why did I do that? You'll see, but it's important to recognize that 36 quarts over 1 does not change the value of 36 quarts, okay? Putting 7 over 1 means the number is still 7, right? Okay, so 36 quarts over 1, and then what we're going to do is we are going to multiply by our conversion factor. So the question is, which one of these two versions are we going to take? Well, this is where we have to think about canceling units. I have quarts. I want to be left with gallons. And just like when we multiply fractions, we can cross cancel, we're doing the same thing here. I want to get rid of quarts, so I need to cross cancel quarts, which means I need the factor that has quarts on bottom here, so I can eventually cross cancel the quarts on top there. So which one of these has quarts on bottom? This one right here. So the 4 quarts is going to go on bottom, the 1 gallon is going to go on top. Now we go ahead and cross cancel the units, and we can also cross cancel the numbers too if we really want. Quarts on top, quarts on bottom, so I've canceled those. And for this one, we won't cross cancel the numbers, just to kind of draw it out a little bit more so you can see. And now we go ahead and multiply. They're fractions, so I multiply across the top and then across the bottom. So 36 nothings times 1 gallon is 36 gallons over 1 times 4 nothings is just 4. And then all we have to do is finish by saying, well, what's 36 divided by 4? That is equal to 9 gallons, and that's our answer. We just converted 36 quarts to gallons. How many gallons are in 36 quarts? There are 9 gallons. Alright, so you can either roll with me on this one or pause the video and try it on your own. Either way, we're going to convert 25 centimeters to inches. So what we need to do is, again, set up what we were given and over 1. So 25 centimeters over the number 1. Not 1 inch, not that, just 1, the number 1. And we're going to multiply by our conversion factor. Remember, we could write this 2 different ways. 1 inch is approximately equal to 2.54 centimeters, okay? So which version are we going to take? Well, remember, we are wanting to convert centimeters to inches. So I want to get rid of these centimeters here and be left with inches in the end. So that means if there's centimeters on top here and I need to get rid of them, the centimeters need to go on bottom of my factor. So the 2.54 centimeters is going to go on bottom there, and that means the 1 inch is going to go on top there. We go ahead and we cross cancel our units that we're getting rid of, and then we multiply. 25 nothings times 1 inch is 25 inches over 1 times 2.54 nothings is 2.54. So no units there. And then what we have to do is finish, because 25 inches over 2.54 is not a great way of expressing length. So we need to actually do what it says, and that's a fraction bar, so it means divide. So we go ahead and set up our long division here, shrink that down a little bit, and we would do 25, give myself enough room here, 25 divided by 2.54, and of course there's a decimal here, and we can't have that, so I need to move it 2 places to the right, so that decimal there is going to have to move 2 places to the right also, so the new problem is 254 there and 2500, and then we can go ahead and start plugging away. So just 254 going to 2, no. 25, no. 250, no. What about 2,500? Yeah, it's going to go in there, but about how many times? Well, I know it's going to go in there less than 10 times, because if this was multiplied by 10, it'd be 2,540, and this is only 2,500, so I bet it goes in there 9 times. We can try it real quick. 254 times 9, that's 36, that's 45, plus 3 is 48, 18, and then 4, so that's 22. So that gives us a total there, going in there 9 times, of 2,286, and then subtract. And so the 0 is not going to work. The 50 is going to turn into a 49, and then that's 4, that's 1, it's 2, and then nothing there. 2 minus 2 is 0. And so then we could say, does that go in? 254 going to 214? No. And so we could add a 0 and bring it down. We also have to add a decimal there because that was the end right there, and then do it again. And so you guys know how to do long division, and so what you end up finding is you're going to get an 8 there, and then you would get a 4, and then a 2, and a 5, and so we keep on going. So we're going to have to round at some point. So let's just round to maybe the nearest, let's do nearest hundredth, okay? So we have the 4 in the hundredths place, which means the 2 is going to tell the 4 either to go up or to stay put, and the 2 is obviously less than 5. So our answer is approximately 9.84. And what's our units? Well, remember we were trying to get rid of centimeters and be left with inches, so it's inches. There you go. 25 centimeters is approximately 9.84 inches. Alright, that's all I got for you guys in this video. We're going to talk a whole lot more about this in class, so don't worry. But if you're struggling, I'd watch the video one more time for sure, because you want a good jump start on this before we get going to class. Until then, I will see you later.